It's wonderful to have you here today, the Singapore FinTech Festival 2020. Welcome to today's panel discussion about the ecosystem effects. Well, according to National Geographic, an ecosystem is a geographical area where plants, animals, and other organisms, as well as weather and landscape, work together to form a bubble of life. Well, we're in the midst of radical change brought on by a global pandemic. And amid these conditions, we're here today to explore how we can work together as an important part of a larger ecosystem, but as a collective to design new solutions that achieve human progress at scale. I'm Pierre Habib, AMTD, Head of Ecosystem and Growth, and I'm delighted to welcome today four distinguished individuals who I think many of you might already know. They are leaders in their fields and champions of high-impact global ecosystems. Welcome, Chia, Hock, President of the Singapore FinTech Association.
Hi.
Hi, lovely to have you here. Leanne Rovers, co-founder and co-CEO of She Loves Tech.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a delight to have you here too, Leanne. And Helene Lee, General Manager, FinTech Association of Hong Kong. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. So nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us, Helene. And last but not least, Leung, Head of FinTech at Invest Hong Kong. Great to have you.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. It's going to be an awesome conversation.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, King. So today, our goal is to discuss ecosystems as a model for collaboration across global FinTech hubs that can help facilitate the creation of new socioeconomic value for our community. So I want to sort of kick things off, Hock, if you don't mind me passing on to you to get things going. Now, you're a bit ahead of the game here. You founded the Singapore FinTech Association 4 years ago. I'm curious, how many FinTechs existed back then, and what was the seed of foresight that compelled you to start an association dedicated to FinTechs back then?
Yeah, well, I might have been the founding president, but it's actually founded by a group of like-minded individuals back in 2016. In pure startup style, we all met at the Coffee Bean, just opposite the Monetary Authority of Singapore's building. And that's where we started the discussion of setting up the FinTech Association. Because slightly a year earlier, in 2015, Singapore started our FinTech journey. And Mr. Ravi Menon, the Managing Director of MES, he said that Singapore needs to be a smart financial center whereby technologies are used pervasively to improve efficiency, manage risk better, more importantly, create a better life for all. So that is a pretty top-down strategy, FinTech strategy for the whole of Singapore. And then we think that there should also be a bottoms-up strategy formed by the grassroots among us. So that's why a group of us gathered, facilitated by MES, and then that's how we started. After 4 years, I think the ecosystem has grew beyond our imagination. I think back then there were less than 100 FinTechs. Today, there are easily 1,000 FinTech companies, and 85% of them are our members.
Over to you, Leanne, co-founder and co-CEO of She Loves Tech. You founded She Loves Tech with your co-founders, now grown across 30 countries and regarded as the world's largest startup competition and accelerator program for women and technology. What inspired you to start She Loves Tech? And can you take us back to the setting where the idea first came to light?
We started She Loves Tech in 2015. At that time, I personally had been an entrepreneur. I had built 3 companies. She Loves Tech was the 4th company that I was co-founder of. And when I looked around, being a woman entrepreneur in the tech space, I found that there were a lot of women in entrepreneurship that were struggling to raise money. And, the statistics also showed us very similarly that less than 3% of total venture capital funding went to women-led and women-founded companies. And we believe at She Loves Tech that this is the greatest challenge and issue facing women entrepreneurs globally, which is the funding gap. So we really set out for it to be our mission to solve that funding gap. And at She Loves Tech, we aim to catalyze $1 billion USD in funding for our women entrepreneurs coming through She Loves Tech stores by 2030. And we do this by firstly creating a global database and community for investment-ready women-led startups who have gone through our rigorous program of mentorship and selection. And secondly, also, we have been providing our entrepreneurs with our educational programming that is specifically focused on fundraising based on the data that's been collected from thousands of women-led startups over the last 6 years. So we really, our goal is to help women-led startups to firstly raise capital, and secondly, to help them to grow and to scale.
It's an amazing cause. I think you're in good company here, and I feel like this conversation is going to continue on. And on that note, Helene, Head of FinTech Association of Hong Kong, you've been in the role for a little over a year now?
Yeah.
What was your agenda coming into the role? And how has that changed looking forward at 2021, now being amidst COVID?
The FinTech Association of Hong Kong, I cannot claim credit for it when it started in 2017. I was still a banker at that point in time, have always been in that space. But what attracted me to this is ecosystem, as you said. It's amazing how connectivity and the need to collaborate have really reshaped the world around us. I really echo Leanne's point, in bridging that funding gap for women, entrepreneurs in particular, you need database, you need connectivity, you need a lot of collaborative efforts, which is not just, one person saying, oh, I'm competing against you. I think we're collaborating more than competing. And on that note, I must congratulate the original founders of the FinTech Association of Hong Kong. They really have a huge product to market fit. Okay, so it's soared to success, despite its, short period of time since launch. We now have 1,700 members, representing over 300 organizations that span the full spectrum from public sector, corporate sector, SMEs, as well as startups, and different stages of startups. So I think we are really now poised onto the what we called the FTAHK 2.0, which is what really attracted me to the role as well. So we had a huge, soaring kind of fast track growth in the first couple of years. And now we're really trying to bed that down into representing the industry, or better representing the industry as a cohesive voice with the regulators, with the government, so that we can build out the ecosystem. And we all know that the taxonomy of FinTech is hugely complex. You've got AI, blockchain, payments, etc. So we really want to be that industry voice and helping to build out the ecosystem.
It's great to see that mix of startups, early stage, the late stage with corporates, and I think that's the magic is in that diversity, which is a really nice sort of segue into King. I'm curious. Hong Kong has made some tremendous developments in digital banking specifically, amongst other things. What are the contributing factors that for Hong Kong's evolution from being a leading global financial hub into a globally competitive fintech hub?
Well, again, I have joined West Hong Kong just over a year and a half ago. So to Helene's point, I cannot claim the credit of my predecessors. In a way, I think similar evolution process as Singapore. So Hong Kong started the whole journey from a government major funding injection perspective It was back in 2016. So obviously, to your point, Hong Kong has been an international financial center for so many years. So people feel pretty comfortable for being, top 3 players. But then as the rankings of being the fintech hubs, where the ranking wasn't so high back then, so the senior management or the leadership at the government took notice. So that's why back in 2016, when a paper was published that basically laid out the strategy for Hong Kong in the next 5 years, a lot of funding was injected into different creations, such as the team that I'm not responsible for, as well as a number of fintech-related teams at the major regulators, the HMA, the SFC, the Insurance Authority. And at the same time, we also put a lot of firepower behind major events like the Hong Kong FinTech Week, and then also different funding in which would allow us to work with our major industry partners like Helene's team at the FinTech Association, in which I think I have calls with Helene probably a few times a week. So we work really closely together. So Helene's team represents the private side, and for us, we are kind of the conduits on the public sector side, where we have to break through in getting different, what we call Hong Kong Inc. players across the Hong Kong governments to work together. So again, I think the amount of collaboration is something that we are very touched, because in the past, we talk about, say 5 years ago, I think a lot of people were busy, doing their own thing, making money. But now, if you ask the same group of people, they will tell you, I would say, hands down, people are much more collaborative, much more, I would say, helpful with each other. So again, Hong Kong has come a long way in the past 5 years.
As lead orchestrators in your respective ecosystem, what role do you play to foster a healthy and sustainable growth across your communities? If you don't mind, if you could just kick this off.
Yeah, I think right from the start, our strategy is quite clear. We focus on 4 pillars of activities: providing access to talent, providing access to capital, market access, and to advocate for pro-innovation policies. So in terms of talent, I think in Singapore, just like Hong Kong being one of the key international financial centers, there are a lot of finance talents, but we simply do not have enough tech talent. And so I think we have a couple of strategy, both from in the short term. I think we do need to import quite a number of foreign talent. Or in fact, many of our members had their tech team outside of Singapore. And then, of course, over the medium to longer term, I think it's important to grow the talent pipeline in Singapore. So very early on, we signed an MOU with all the 5 polytechnics in Singapore to immerse the students into the FinTech community, to get them interested in this. And over time, we ran an initiative called FinTech for Schools. So basically going around the various schools to impart the awareness of FinTech as a career to the young talents. And then with regard to providing access to capital, obviously a lot of these startups, they will need capital to grow. And especially most of them use Singapore as just as the initial base to scale out into the region. And so we do some matching for them. And also, I think over time, the capital market for startup funding in Singapore, I think, matured. I think today we have more than 150 VCs operating in Singapore. Many more family offices are setting up in Singapore. So that part, in a way, the early funding we have resolved. So now we are focusing on getting later stage funding sources coming into Singapore. And the third thing about the market access is really about how to connect our members to overseas markets and how to connect them to financial institutions as a banking partner. Because I think over time, the banks becomes a lot more open to collaborate with the startups, because they realize, it does not make sense for them to build from scratch, especially when you can just tap onto the vast number of FinTech companies already out there. And the last one is really to advocate for pro-innovation policies. So we participated actively in all the consultation paper when there are impending changes in in regulations that will affect the industry, and try to lobby for really, to level the playing field for fintech companies to compete with all other financial services players.
Leanne, you also have quickly become quite international. What role have you played in creating a healthy and sustainable ecosystem across such a broad geographical?
Talking about broad, right? In the last 6 years, today we are operational in 30 over countries across 6 continents. It's just been such an exciting time for us to grow at this scale. For us, I think there was a lot of organizations that had talked about the awareness, right? We talked about the funding gap earlier. So there was a lot of awareness that was brought in about this funding gap and the representation gap and the consequences of these gaps. But while that awareness is really important, at She Loves Tech, it was really our mission to go and move just beyond talking and really to move up the ladder to a mechanism to take action. So for us, what that looked like, I think very similar to many of my panelists here today, it really looked like increasing capital. So it was increasing capital and access to women-founded startups. And that really is one of the core things that we do at She Loves Tech, and to provide them with tools and resources. We see She Loves Tech as a way of a connector. Hock had mentioned as well that they've been a connector in many sense, and as She Loves Tech, we are a connector as well to bring together firstly investors who hold the capital, and to bring together the women startups and to provide education to help these women-led startups understand, for example, what is the mindset behind investors. We do a lot of work around the art and science of fundraising, and not just that, but we focus a lot on the psychology of a founder, which we think is extremely pivotal in the entrepreneurship space. And that is something that, in terms of psychology, we bring psychology into every single thing that we do, into all of our education programs. So this has really been something that has been of great importance for She Loves Tech, to be that connector, to provide that education. And the other thing that, we look at She Loves Tech is, if we take a step back beyond just women entrepreneurs, if we start looking at the whole entire economy, at She Loves Tech, we call it the she economy, which is a really great one because women hold 70 to 80% of consumer decisions for the household. And so on the other hand, we see that 80% of women aren't getting the credit needs that they require. And so She Loves Tech is really on a mission as well to work together with financial institutions to help these women, to provide them with the credit that they need and to boost the whole entire she economy.
Helene, tell me about your role as the orchestrator across the FinTech Association or the FinTech community, but also maybe as the orchestrator in sort of overlaying sustainability and impact, and how do they go hand in hand?
It's amazing how aligned we are, as a panel. I really echo Leanne's point about going beyond the talk, because what we find is that whether we want to build an ecosystem, we want to do business matching, or we want to drive the sustainable development agenda, inclusion and diversity agenda, the talk is still quite a bit louder than the action in many cases. And I do believe that, among the panel today, we are all fairly action-focused and outcome-driven people. So at the FinTech Association, the way we unpack that is really through the 3 key pillars: to educate, to collaborate, and to advocate. And the 2 are actually 3 different sides of a coin, if a coin has 3 sides. So the way we try to work on that is across the whole spectrum where our membership base is, and across the whole spectrum where our key partners are, including Invest Hong Kong, the regulators, and other regional, fintech associations such as Singapore FinTech Association and many others, I think there is a very strong sense of collaboration in terms of doing education programs, making sure the community is well plugged in into the different access, whether it be access to capital or access to regulators and so on. So a lot of the initiatives of the FinTech Association is really built around all that. And I'm very happy to say that as part of the second phase of the FTHK 2.0, we are actually honing in a lot more on the education side. So to Leanne's point, things around mentorship, things around building out the talent pipeline, which we keep talking, whether in Singapore or Hong Kong, the talent pipeline is actually not as strong, perhaps, as we like it to be. And in order to build out the ecosystem, you do need talent. You need more than just tech. Man and tech go hand in hand together to make this possible. So that definitely is something we are looking into. On the sustainability side, I think, again, as one of the co-founders of Go Impact, our whole ethos is impact made easy. And we find that whether it's for investors, whether it's for the talents, it hasn't really been easy. It's a very fragmented space, pretty much echoing what Leanne was saying, like in the she economy space. It's pretty fragmented before that, and hence the need for intervention. Again, we're focusing a lot on the education side, because we do believe that investor education in a fragmented space will be crucial to take it forward. It's not just mobilizing the capital, but it's mobilizing the mindset to get the readiness of investors to look at this in a fairly ordered and structured manner. So the ecosystem play, again, very much comes into play, Pierre.
Let's talk capital, combining talent and tech, but capital, King, what's your role in orchestrating the capital flows, making sure it's the right money to the right places?
We are now at this juncture in history that is unprecedented, right? With so many things happening around us. And particularly, if we look at the, investors' perspective. So obviously, Asia is going to be where the action is in the coming century. But at the same time, there's also this time in history where a lot of the wealth of the ultra high net worth folks are being passed on to the next generation, right? The second or the third generation. Now, so basically what we are seeing now is that, now again, I think much like Singapore, Hong Kong has always been a hub of capital, right? The IPOs, even private capital. Just to put it in perspective, now one of the associations in Hong Kong, HKVCA, the Hong Kong Venture Capital and Private Equity Association. So they have a few hundreds members. No, so angels, VCs, PEs. Now, together, they manage over $2 trillion of private capital, trillion with a T. Okay, so again, this is a lot of money now to be invested. Now, we're not even talking about the family offices that kind of doing their own thing, but which right now we're trying to bring them into the fold as well. So in a way, I guess going back to what the other panel speakers have been sharing, is that at the end of the day, the desire is there, the money is there, but then are the second or third generation of the, let's say the family offices, are they comfortable enough to invest into the next, Air Wallace, the next WeLab, which are now, unicorns in Hong Kong, but then they feel comfortable. Of course, initially, they will need a lot more education, a lot more sharing from people that they trust. So that's why besides running the webinars, the seminars and whatnot, what we feel that is something that Invest Hong Kong is playing a pretty important role, is that after all, we are government departments and we are neutral. We just want to make sure that the whole ecosystem, the community is thriving. So that's why wearing that neutral hats, so we can basically access and have pretty unbiased opinions in a way to help to bring in the folks in an environment that they feel comfortable. And as such, as we keep on working with great partners like Helene's team at the FinTech Association, and also like a family office, association, and so on, then we are able to, again, bring the awareness up to a level that they start opening up the checkbook to make investment in the fintech space, which is something that we're working very hard. Now, just as a side note, now Hong Kong is not just Hong Kong, as many of us are aware in the recent media coverage. So the GBA, right, the Greater Bay Area, southern part of China, 1.6 trillion GDP. So again, some of the funds that we're working with in the VC space, they have the limits to invest into specific GBA-focused ventures. So to them, I said they have the money, they have limits. And again, we have to find the ventures to channel to these funds with the GBA limits so that they have a pipeline to keep looking at this space. Eventually, they get invested, growing the pie. So this is another exciting developments that we are seeing.
Thank you so much, King. Maybe if we could, just to stay with you, King, if you don't mind, just to unpack and get down to that next level. So what benefits are the tech companies themselves getting from what you're doing? And I'll ask the same question to the rest of the panelists. The ones that are leveraging what you're offering and connecting and working with you to develop that relationship that you're talking about, what benefits are they getting, and how is that converting into real value for the communities that they're serving? Just maybe give us some examples, if you could, just to bring it to life a little bit.
Sure. Now, again, Invest Hong Kong is like a superconductor of a lot of the things happening around the fintech space. So as a result, we don't necessarily be the ones that give out, the checks, right, the funding. But actually, there's another aspect that's equally important, and that is credibility. Now, so obviously, for a lot of startups, however good they are, I think only the people in that sort of small circle would know how good they are. But in the broader sense, the big corporates may not be aware how good they are. So in a way, they need someone, right, to give them, in a way, to kind of endorse them, right? To give them a little nudge in terms of the awareness, the credibility aspects. Then this is where Invest Hong Kong comes in. So of course, we have to get to know, the founders of the startups, and then what we've done over a period of time. But at a certain period of time in that journey, we're going to basically sort of fire up the whole Invest Hong Kong marketing machine, right? So we're going to go with them, feature them in some sort of like videos, featuring them as a beacon, a leader in a certain segment within fintech, with the Invest Hong Kong brand going along with them. So of course, this is something that takes some time to build that mutual understanding and trust. But once we get there, we are able to help the startup to get them to go to one step further in terms of the overall market recognition. So this is something that as we sometimes joke, is something that money cannot buy.
Yeah, absolutely, King. That's super insightful. I'm going to come back to you. I want to ask you for some tips for our audience on how they can do that better, do that engagement better. And I'm curious to hear about your thoughts on that. On the same question, Helene, if I can come to you, tell us about some of the benefits that your community, in particular the tech companies, are getting from being part of the ecosystem and being able to leverage the resources, and what are some of the impacts that they're generating for their, the communities that they're serving.
Thank you, Pierre. I fully echo King's point about trust and credibility. I think trust is the common currency for success, whether for fintech or in the finance industry. And unfortunately, trust comes with track record, which not all startups have, and it takes time to build. So I think part of what we are trying to orchestrate together with other industry partners is to help build that level of trust for fintech solution providers so that they can actually gain better access to partners, whether it be with the banks or other financial institutions, or better access to capital in terms of like VC funds or other investors that could be interested in investing in the fintech space. So in terms of building out that credibility, in addition to what King mentioned, I think, we see that collaborative framework as a key that the association, like the FinTech Association of Hong Kong, can help to build. I use one example, if you are a payment solution provider, okay? So you are on the scaling up stage, you've raised Series B, C, etc., okay? So instead of competing head on with others in your space, probably you want to look at some kind of, a collaborative partnership with financial institutions that are big in the transaction banking space, for instance. That would be a logical step, and so on. And big payments providers, banks that are huge in transaction, banking, they would be welcoming the opportunity to, look at, collaborative opportunities with some of these payment solution providers. So that again echoes the point. They are both competing in some ways, but also the collaborating in other ways. So collaboration is really the next competitive advantage.
That's super fascinating insight. Thanks, Helene, for that. And maybe over to you, Leanne. I know you run it's a global startup competition, so you've got. Curious to hear how some of the winners have, participated in the program, or benefits they've got, and maybe if you could share some success stories with us about them paying back.
Of course. So thank you, Pierre. We at Chia Loves Tech, help our startups to grow and to scale by not just providing the startup competition, but actually we provide a whole range of resources and tools for them. So from workshops, from pitch workshops, fundraising workshops, legal workshops, workshops on psychology or founder, all the way to one-to-one mentorship, to access to corporate access to investors, which is really important. And one of the things that I just want to echo as well, King and Helene mentioned about that credibility, right? And that, I think that's going to be a common thread because at Chia Loves Tech, this is where I think we also really add value. So for example, over the weekend that has just passed, we had our global Chia Loves Tech finals. This whole entire year, we've had over 40 rounds of Chia Loves Tech competitions happening in over 30 countries all around the world, and that culminated in our grand finals, where we had the top 12 startups from 60 countries around the world that they applied from. And also we had our conference, our global conference that tied in with that. Well, at our global conference, we had speakers such as Arianna Huffington. We had speakers such as Ann Carnes, Vice Chair of MasterCard, Kathy Matsui, Vice Chair of Goldman Sachs, Japan. We had Mahmoud from the UN. We had here in Singapore, the Managing Director of the Economic Development Board. And we just had a slate of just amazing speakers. So for our startups to also be kind of in this presence, right, of this network, and also to be pitching as well at a conference of that level, gives them great credibility because we had media covering us, from CNN to Bloomberg to CMP, and then here in Asia to Tech in Asia and E27. And it just provides them that visibility that we found that a lot of women-led, women impact startups really lacked, right? They didn't like the limelight on them, but we really created, a lot of to spotlight them. We created this visibility that suddenly they've been recognized globally. And now I see sometimes, because I mentor more than 100 startups throughout different ecosystems and accelerator programs. And when I view a startup, sometimes I see our Chia Loves Tech logo and they say, okay, I was a finalist at Chia Loves Tech 2017, and it has now become this stamp of credibility. So that has been really, really interesting. And then if I were just to kind of take it to the societal level, I want to just bring in a story from what we've been doing in Pakistan. So we've been in Pakistan now for the last 4 years, and we have just great support there. Pakistan has been quite a conservative nation, and so not the most forward with women, especially women leaders. And so, what we have found is that at our events, we've had the ministers come and speak. We've had heads of banks and really some of the most important people in Pakistan come to our finals in Pakistan and to speak up about how important this is for the greater Pakistan. And they say She Loves Tech is such an important one for Pakistan because they want to build a better Pakistan. And I have little girls coming up to me after our rounds in Pakistan, and they tell me, thank you for bringing She Loves Tech to Pakistan. Because of She Loves Tech, we now know that we can also choose a career in technology, because we grew up thinking that technology was just for the boys. But after seeing these amazing women on stage pitching groundbreaking technologies, we know that we can also choose that for ourselves.
Oh, wonderful. Your energy is infectious, Leanne. I want to just reiterate, so She Loves Tech is a non-profit, is that right?
Yes, so we are a non-profit organization.
It's just such a brilliant cause. Thank you, Leanne. Hock, can I maybe just to finish off on this question, what benefits are your members getting? I'm assuming they're getting a lot. Word of mouth is out. It's gone from 100 to 1,000 members plus. What value are they getting from being part of this, your ecosystem there? And what are sort of some of the success stories that are coming out from the program?
Yeah, I think we have plenty to offer our members, and that's reflected by the numbers. We have about 850 corporate members. There's about every 4 out of 5 fintech companies in Singapore is our member, and then we have a pretty large international footprint also. We have partnerships with 60 organizations across 40 countries. So with that, in the past, right, we have been organizing trade missions. So in 2019, we organized 7, ranging from going to London to Kenya to Taiwan to China. And we also published about 3 to 4 thought leadership reports per year. And we organize about 4 to 5 events, whether is it for knowledge sharing, whether is it for networking, so that our members have more opportunities to do business development. And more recently, during the COVID-19, we actually pivoted to provide a more of an enabler role. We came out with a FinTech certification program to certify FinTech companies so that they are eligible for grants and funds from government agencies. So to date, we certified about 450 of our members as FinTech companies. We also, together with AMTD and MAS, we came up with a FinTech Solidarity Grant to help FinTech companies that are facing near-term cash flow problems, with some grants for them. In June, we also roll out a compliance readiness framework to help our FinTech companies to meet the regulatory requirements when working with FinTech institution partners. And we roll out the FinTech Jobs Portal in July. So these are the various things that we have been doing, and the outcome is clear. Today, I think there are more than 10,000 people working in the FinTech industry compared to about 1,000 4 years back. I think during this COVID, it has shown that the financial services sector, being an essential service, has been quite resilient and coping well, and is still growing. Yesterday, I just heard that over the next 1 year, the entire financial services sector is still recruiting about 3,000 to 4,000 jobs and traineeships. And today, I think I just saw the report. The first 9 months of the year, the total FinTech funding already exceeded the whole last year. So that reflects how well the ecosystem has grown over the last 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, and they're important messages for your for the FinTech for Schools conversation, as as young kids are looking at all the different possibilities for their careers, and I think that's pretty compelling proposition. Last question, quick question, each of you. I think we've got about 4 minutes left, so a minute each. I'm going to come back to you, King. You touched a bit on. I wanted to ask you, what tips do you want to give the audience, the members of the FinTech community, tech community in Hong Kong? What tips would you give them for engaging with Hong Kong investor?
Well, the short answer is just find me on LinkedIn, King Leung, Invest Hong Kong, or go to the FinTech HK LinkedIn page. Now, basically, we are just having this mindset that in today's world, things are happening so fast, and there's no possible way any single organization or any single person can know everything. So that's why we have this very humble mindsets that we are always there to learn from all the smart people around the world. And along the way, we are also becoming the sort of connector. Once we have this incoming smart person trying to check out the Hong Kong market for opportunities, then we are plugged into so many different resources, be it on the public sector side as well as the private sector side. So we are able to very quickly connect that smart person or that smart organization to the right resource to basically fast track the way to enter the Hong Kong market, subsequently to mainland China and so on. So just talk to us and we will get this sorted out very quickly.
Well, I'm all for action, as we agree on the panel. I think, if I may just borrow, Steve Jobs' words, stay hungry, stay foolish, but have your feet on the ground. There are so many people that sort of like start with the ideas like a Swiss Army knife. I can solve this problem, I can solve that problem. And hey, wait a minute, you can probably do a lot better if you solve one of the most painful problems. So, I would echo that, stay teachable. It's very easy to reach me at the FinTech Association or through Go Impact, and we love to collaborate.
So my tip is that technology is a means to an end and not an end in itself. Building tech solutions just for the sake of it is more so than not, it's a waste of time and money. And I think the biggest lesson that I've learned when building tech products is make sure that you're solving an important problem and let the tech follow the problem, not the other way around. And, you can reach me on LinkedIn, follow us as well on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram for She Loves Tech.
Yeah, I think first of all, I'm only present on LinkedIn, so connect me via LinkedIn. I think in terms of tips, I think is pretty much, the other panelists already said, I just summarize it. I call it the ABC. Okay, first, be adaptable and be agile. Be ready to learn on the go and ready to pivot when necessary. Next, be bold in thinking out of the box, but more importantly, be bold in making decisions despite not having all the numbers or all the facts. But again, be flexible to go back to to change, to adapt once you have new numbers to support a different direction. Last but not least is really a collaborative mindset, like King has said. We don't have all the answers by ourselves. So have a collaborative mindset, be willing to collaborate and communicate with everyone so that together we can solve a bigger problem. Yeah.
Oh, the wise words, Hock. Thank you so much for sharing those thoughts and insights and spending time with us today. Thank you all of you on the panel and everyone out there. Please connect with us. I'm Pierre, Habib at AMTD Digital. Look forward to connecting with you in the future and continuing to collaborate across ecosystems. Have a wonderful day, evening, and morning. Good night.